been here the 16th year. I come here at the 27th September 1990, and though the people work here very friendly, even different country, but we still very friendly. We look like family. I mean, we spend the time at home less than we spend the time here with the friends who work here. You know, 6:30 come and 3 o'clock go home. And when we go home, just cooking and jump in the bed. We spend the time here in this factory more than we spend the time in the family. And when Simon decided to close this factory, we very sad. Because without situation, when you apply another job, factory job, they say you too old, 55 years old. But when you come to Centrelink to ask the pension, they say you too young to get the pension. That's why we've been in the middle. And when we very sad without my friend with the over 50 years, you know, very hard to looking another job like that job here in the factory. And in the morning, next morning, Monday, wake up, we will miss all the people work here. We miss the black, we miss the chair we sit. Because usually we do it for a long time, you know. Very sad when the factory is closing down.
I came to the pottery in 1946, I think it was June or July, as the accountant, well not the accountant, I was a cost clerk in those days, to look after the accounts and the payroll and the like. And shortly afterwards, some 2-3 months later on, a new manager was appointed. When I came down, they didn't have a manager, he'd left for other reasons. And the new manager was George Clawson, whom I'm sure most people are familiar with the name now because of the Wembley Ware Association. He was entirely responsible for, they were his ideas, and he instituted the production of Wembley Ware. And we're all surprised these days at the publicity it's achieved, and everybody seems to be wanting to buy Wembley Ware to hold. We didn't think much of it in our day, I'm afraid. That's most of us. And we're very surprised at the reception it's getting now. We had to keep the factory going, and the local crockery wasn't doing too well on the market, so we had to do something to fill the kilns. And I don't know where he got the idea from, but he came up with it, and he managed to get a couple of artists and modellers that came in, and they modelled different things from what he'd give them the idea. He wanted this, that and the other. In those days, this was just after the war, and there was a very high sales tax on items that weren't considered to be useful. So these were... George Clawson decided, in view of that he would make an ashtray and then put these figures on it to decorate it and give it some more appeal, and mainly to get a higher price. And that's how the ashtrays came into being, due to the high sales tax in those days.
And at that time, it was during the war years, so most of the staff were teenagers. There were only a few older people running the place, and they were the original staff from Carlix's when they brought them over. And I was in the potter shop doing these jugs and teapots and everything else. And I used to dream about them, you know, going across the ceiling, these things. And then gradually I left there and took up the rest of the work. I used to get bored, so I was lucky the bosses used to move me on. And I went right round the factory eventually, and ended up in the decorating when they started the Wembley Ware. And that's where I started.
In 1950 I came in from Holland to Australia. Worked for 6 months in the railways, and then I didn't like the type of work, but it was too big industry. I was used to fine machinery, so I was looking around, and there was an advert in the paper for a maintenance fitter in Bristol. And I applied for it and I got it. when I got here, the factory was, the new kilns that they had there was just started, and one was ready, the other one was only 2 foot high. Then there was a lot of machinery had to go there, and I did that with help from other people. And so we did that for about a couple of years, and then I became in charge of the engineer shop, and then I was looking around for other work, but engineering that was okay. And so they promoted me to go in the factory. And naturally that was something I never did before. And after about 4 or 5 years, I became in charge of the kilns. And we had a lot of people working there, and it was very interesting to see for me. And then when the first year I was here, we had a Christmas party here, and that is like they did in Australia, but there were the men and there were the women. And so I thought to myself, that doesn't look nice. So in that year I was there, I made arrangements with people to get a Christmas party. And so I played banjo, and we had a couple of other people's instruments. And so we went in the canteen there, and the big bosses came in, and we played a number, and we started singing, and we had a fantastic, and we had a table set with lunch and dinner, and beer and lemonade for the, so that was a fantastic thing for the people who worked here before.
It was a very old factory. It was established in 1921, give or take a year or two, by a group of potters that were brought out from England by a local group of businessmen to set up the industry. And in those days, of course, as you can imagine, it was just virgin forest, well, not forest, just wasteland. There were no houses, and they had to build houses to house the employees. And that would be 1921-22. It didn't prosper, and the government took it over, and that's when Bristyle, or Brisbane and Wunderlich in those days, it was HL Brisbane and Wunderlich, the government approached the company and they decided to have a look at it. And they took charge of the place until just after the war, when they decided to buy it and own it completely. But it was a very old factory, and more parts of it you'd think were back in Dickensian days, you know.
I was 13, I think, when I left school, and I started work, not here, I started work at a florist shop. I was in there for 12 months and I came here. I used to walk past. I used to work, the lady that I worked with in the florist shop used to send me to do her house cleaning, and I hated house cleaning. And I used to walk across the paddock here, and they used to have those little things that the plates used to sit between. So I don't know what they call them now, but you come out and you put the plate and the plate goes up. And I used to pick them up when I went past. Anyway, I saw the notice in the paper that they wanted help, so I came here after the Christmas. And I started pretty well the same time as Brisbane's took over this factory from Calix's. The first wage I worked for a week and I got 7 and 9pence. And then when I worked at the florist shop I got 15 shillings and I got 25 shillings